Welcome to the Flora and Friends Christmassy Mystery Plant Challenge. I am your hostess, Judith Lundberg-Felten, plant biologist and researcher and founder of Flora-L Design and podcast host of the Flora and Friends podcast. So we are back for our third episode on the Christmassy mystery plant. And today is the big revelation day. And I am here not just alone, but with me is Melissa.
Hello.
And Delphine.
Hey.
So the whole Flora-L team reunited for ending the year and for revealing what our mystery plant was. Maybe, Melissa, do you want to recap our 5 clues from the first episode that we had?
I would love to. Number 1, it's ever so green, even though it may switch off its capacity to do photosynthesis. Number 2, its berries and leaves for dessert would suit Easter more than Christmas, given that it may become your last supper. Clue number 3, you won't hurt your toe by stepping on its roots, as they are nowhere near the ground despite its sturdy base. Number 4, the leaves of this plant hang from its twigs in a similar way as people like to hang around this plant. And number 5, its lifestyle is contrary to what humans make of it.
Yes. And then we had in the second episode the whole Norse mythology about Balder being killed by an arrow made of this plant. So, Delphine, what's the plant?
Mistletoe!
Mistletoe, exactly.
Mistletoe!
And we've noticed that it's not really growing in Sweden nor in Canada.
But it does grow in France.
It grows in France, exactly. So, the German name for it is mistel. What's the French name?
Guy.
Guy.
Very weird, unrelated name, like many.
Is
French
there
words.
a Swedish name?
That's a good question. Is it mistel? It's often
I
the
think
same.
it's mistel. I think.
Yes, we should have looked this up, of course, but we didn't. We looked up so many things, but not the Swedish word. And they are part of, botanically, of 3 different families, which is the Loranthaceae, the Mesodendraceae, and the Xanthalaceae. So there's different ones. And we actually have different ones in Europe as compared to America. So a little bit of different plants growing in different other plants. But maybe we go through the different clues now and reveal what we actually refer to.
Clue number 1, it's ever so green, even though it may switch off its capacity to do photosynthesis.
Yes. Why does it do that?
Because it doesn't need to. Or, I would guess, that would be my guess.
It's actually a hemiparasitic plant. So it's parasitic means it's basically using nutrients and also sugars from another plant to grow. Usually plants make photosynthesis in order to produce sugar so that they can grow. And they have roots to absorb nutrients from the soil.
They actually use photosynthesis only at the beginning of their life.
Exactly.
I think, until they actually root themselves in the host. And then they don't need, they just roll on the sugar made by the host.
Opposite of children.
Yes.
Children start out dependent on the parent and then become self-sufficient, but this is self-sufficient first until it can rely on someone else to take care, or another plant to take care of it.
Exactly.
It's a very nice comparison. I think very, very good to remember how the mistletoe is so different from us humans.
Strange that they stay greens even in winter, though, because I mean, this is how we recognize it. Because in summer you barely see it, but in winter is the only green thing you see hanging in the tree. Though it doesn't use the photosynthesis, but it just keeps the energy to maintain the whole thing, which is kind of, it could just be an ugly little brown tissue. But no, it just stays beautiful, green.
I guess if it doesn't have to work itself to maintain that green, it's gonna just draw all the resources it needs, even though maybe it's not necessary to stay green. It's going to take that energy and stay green anyway.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. And the whole fact that it is actually green in the winter and it can even flower in the winter also made it a very magic plant. What I read is that Celtic druids in the 1st century already were fascinated by it because it was blossoming in the winter and it became a sacred symbol of vivacity and was administered to humans to restore fertility because it was such a fertile plant. Well, let's not say it worked, but it was an interesting observation that they thought, oh, there's actually one thing that's green, whereas all other plants around, especially they are growing in leaf trees. So this became visible at that time. So that's interesting that it intrigued people for so long time. And it's still somehow used today.
I think it's interesting, the connection to the Druids, because I think they really worshipped oak trees in general. And oak trees are a host for mistletoe for sure. So they would see this. And I could imagine how someone would think that's a magical plant, green and surviving in winter.
But they must have been noticing side effects, though. I mean, you give a mistletoe tea to someone for fertility and they just threw up and be feeling sick for days.
Right. So let's use that to go into clue number 2, which was its berries and leaves for dessert would suit Easter more than Christmas, given that they may become your last supper.
Yes.
Yeah, toxicity of the berries and the leaves. So you cannot get healthy by any way you drink a potion out of mistletoe. But maybe they were thinking it was meaning it was working. I mean, if you see an effect, if people were feeling a bit dizzy and a bit not feeling well, maybe they were thinking that's a sign that the potion was actually having an effect, though not the one they were intended to.
I think it's usually that effect, the dose response effect. It depends on which dose you administer it. And mistletoe is still studied for its medical effect as a medical plant, as many toxic plants where molecules are extracted from in order to try them for possibility to use them in phytomedical purposes. And Delphine, you had found out something about what molecules are in the mistletoe.
One is called tyramine. It's actually a derivative of common amino acids that we all produce, plants and animals, and this tyrosine. So that's commonly found in us, but those, as you say, it's what's making it toxic. And the other one, it's called, let me see, Flora-toxin, which I had no idea what it was, but it seems to be a group of toxin quite common among plants as well. Plants has this capacity of being both good and bad depending on how you use and the dose you use it. But it's 2 toxins that are responsible. And the European mistletoe is more toxic than the American one. So if you want to have bad effects, come and pick some in Europe instead.
So that one of the tradition is to actually pick off the berries when you kiss under the mistletoe until there's no berries left. So make sure you dispose the berries in an appropriate way and not in the sight of children who may take them for goodies.
Okay, clue number 3. You won't hurt your toe by stepping on its roots, as they are nowhere near the ground, despite its sturdy base.
So I put in the toe clue there for the mistletoe. That the toe comes from an Old English word which means twig. So that is what we found out about that. But the mistletoe doesn't really have real roots when it comes to that.
No, it's hanging quite high actually as well. Or maybe it's not like it's difficult to reach. I mean, because it's often on the oak tree, and oak tree have high branches. But maybe the reason why it's not easy to pick a mistletoe from a tree.
Maybe can one of you explain what a mistletoe actually looks like for people who haven't seen the plant in the wild?
It's like a green. I think it's looking a bit like a blueberry bush hanging. It's like this, like very small leaves.
Well, it's long leaves. The blueberries have more like round leaves, and they are a little bit longer. They are growing pairwise on the twigs.
Yeah.
And then the berries are white. Pretty much transparent. And the whole plant, when it's up there, to me, it looks very much like a bowl. It's very round.
It's really round.
Form. And then it can also, by growing on that tree, it can cause also a modification of the tree, which is called the witch's brooms. So the tree is making lots of short drafted branches. And that's a phenomenon that is not the mistletoe itself, but it's because the plant is attacked by the mistletoe and its growth changed, that these also happen to be. But yeah, you can see probably both when you look into a tree that has mistletoe growing on it. You will see this modification of the plant itself and the mistletoe balls up in the
it's
crown.
A dense ball. I mean, you see it more by the density than by the color, because they're often quite far up, but it's like a denser zone in the branch.
And it's the structure that it forms. It's like a root-like structure that grows through the bark of the branches and then connects into the vascular system, where the sugars and water and nutrients are transported in the tree. And that structure is called a haustorium. And I found that very interesting. I knew more about pathogenic fungi that attack plants, and they also make a haustorium. So I was intrigued that they had the same name, but when you look it up, it comes from a Latin word that the word is haustor, and it means the one who draws, drains, and drinks. So the mistletoe and the like bad fungi that grow on plants, they purge their way into that system and drink from the host plant. And that's also why in the long term, that's not so good for the host plant.
Okay, clue number 4. The leaves of this plant hang from its twigs in a similar way as people like to hang around this plant.
We kind of mentioned that the leaves are pairwise. So there's always 2 opposite each other, like people are standing pairwise under the mistletoe. Some people said that if you kiss, you need to get married. That was one of the older traditions. Other people say if you don't want to kiss the person that you meet under the mistletoe, it brings bad luck. But it usually involves 2 people being under the mistletoe. What about the traditions in France?
Yeah, it's like they said that at the beginning was, as you say, it was like a Druid tradition, and people were asked to kiss under for different luck or different marriage. But little by little, I mean, when the Christian took over, all those old tradition, they disappeared. But this one still was kept with the time. But the only things that is still present is the kissing for the New Year's Eve, like you have in the US, and it's just wishing luck. So you can basically kiss wherever you want. It's not like a partnership. It's just, look, you kiss for good luck for the year to come. So that's the only tradition that is left, though it was used extensively for different reasons. Always kissing, but for this different reason before. So I think it's the one that is left everywhere. I don't know any other country using it for other reason than New Year's Eve or Christmas, maybe.
Melissa, is it used in Canada?
We have always had some in our house as children, like it was part of our Christmas decorations in our family, but we had plastic mistletoe because it doesn't grow anywhere near where we live. So I had never seen a real living mistletoe until I was an adult living in Europe. But we had a plastic one that hung at the door, and we knew the little kind of like idea that you're supposed to kiss people under the mistletoe. And it's often, I think, approached in North America. You see it in like Christmas movies as like a way of like almost trying to kiss someone you might have like a crush on or something, like, oh, I got trapped under the mistletoe with my special person, so I have to kiss you now. Like that's kind of the cultural reference, I think, that it tends to take on in North America.
But is it more for Christmas then?
Yeah, Christmas season. Yep. Yep. And there's, of course, there's a really famous Christmas song. I saw Mommy kissing Santa Claus underneath the mistletoe last night. And that story's talking about Santa. So that would be like Christmas Eve, right? Yeah. So talking about kissing under the mistletoe on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, but for us, I think is that it's like dissociated now. So you have Christmas, no mistletoe, and then New Year's Eve, the mistletoe is coming. Always have a green plant. So you have the spruce, and then the mistletoe is stepping in when the spruce is just losing the needles and looking pitiful in your home.
I don't think I have ever met mistletoe in Germany at any person's house. It may be some more like of an imported tradition in some homes, like we have imported Halloween and other traditions from the US. But the tradition seems to have like really this kissing under the mistletoe has established in England in the 18th century in the like among the servants that started this, and then it migrated up to the middle class, and then it spread to America as well. So it's interesting how these traditions have been hanging around for long, but been used in many different ways. Shall we move on to our last?
Yes.
Sure. So clue number 5 was its lifestyle is contrary to what humans make of it.
Yeah, we are closing the loop there, what Melissa has said, how it goes with the humans and the children. But I think it's also referring to its parasitic lifestyle, that it's draining the partner for nutrients and not giving anything back, as parasitism is. It's not a symbiotic relationship. It's benefiting one side and not the other. It seems that also mistletoe can parasitize on other mistletoe plants, who are then parasitizing on the host tree. So there doesn't seem any limit to the behavior of mistletoe. So next time you kiss under it, you may want to think why this is so inspiring for us. And maybe that's a clue for how our relationships sometimes end up. I had another fun fact of mistletoe, and that is a dwarf mistletoe that is primarily growing on conifer trees. That was something interesting that I didn't know, that it could grow on conifer trees, so on needle trees. And it shoots away its seeds using hydrostatic pressure at 80 kilometers an hour. So that was pretty cool.
I hope it's small seeds.
Yes. It makes me think of the mythology story with the arrow, right? That seed could have been like an arrow.
Yeah. See, even there we are connecting the dots with our mistletoe story. What is the thing that you relate most to the mistletoe when you think about the mistletoe, Melissa and Delphine?
It makes me think of Christmas time and kissing. So we really have that tradition. And I do want to say, I really do think the plant itself is beautiful. it really is a beautiful plant when you see it. It's like got a simplicity to it that's really special. And the translucence of the berries is just really fascinating to me. So I enjoy seeing living mistletoe when I can.
Yeah, for me it's the same as it's the tradition, though it's not used in every part of France. So it's not like a super popular tradition, but I think watching so many American movies, it's just getting you're brainwashed that mistletoe is the kissing spot. But the same with Melissa, I just enjoy. I mean, when I see one, I think it's when everything is just gray and brown. I think it's still nice to have this little joyful yet not so joyful green plants showing a little bit.
For me, it's really the plant that I remember in the trees. It's always there when I would go back to my hometown and have to drive there the last kilometers if I have been flying into Düsseldorf. I remember these trees standing along the highway and seeing the mistletoe bowls in there. That's more for me. It's kind of a sign of being home again from Sweden, because I don't see them here so much. So even though I'm not flying now, but I'm looking forward to seeing the mistletoe at my visit in Germany to the end of the year. So that's what it more means to me, because we have never used mistletoe close by. And I enjoyed also looking at the plant actually now when I looked up more information to see how it looks like. And this very nice and shiny berries, they are really, really interesting. I hadn't noticed the berries so much. I more noticed the shape of this bowl-like structure.
Mm-mm. Strange that you're really home with a parasitic being. Maybe not the best connection.
That may tell its own story.
That's just nature's way, tricking us with beauty and, outward appearances, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a popular plant and it's around. And I would say, I hope that when you see it now, you think about it a little bit differently, and maybe the whole mistletoe story, including the mythology and the parasitic behavior, has given you some new insights into this Christmas plant that, maybe it's not lifestyle. It's not so Christmassy as we thought it would be. Shall we say Merry Christmas with this?
Yes. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and a very good year. And the Flora and Friends podcast will be back next year with new episodes. And we will also draw the winner. But now that we're recording this, actually, before we can pick the winner, because the challenge is not over yet, we will reveal the winner in a separate post to that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Have a lovely Christmas.
Yeah, you too.
You too.
Bye, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.